Welcome back to the Hope Dems podcast, where we dive deep into the issues that really matter most to our community here in Hope County. In our second episode, we're going to discuss how faith influences businesses and the impact of Black female leadership in our political landscape. We're William Munn
and Tyson Moy.
All right. And we're here together today with a very, very special guest, Florine Fleming. She is not only our dear first vice chair of the Democratic Party here in Hope County, but she's a dedicated small business owner who prioritizes faith over our politics. And so we'll uncover her unique perspectives and contributions to politics and entrepreneurship. This is going to be really exciting. Thank you so much for being here, Mrs. Fleming.
And thank you both, William and Tyson, for inviting me. It's an honor that you guys asked for my perspective on this.
Well, it is a pleasure. We find that it's really important to prioritize people, to prioritize life. And in this, super hyper capitalistic, get ahead at any cost, society, it's really a breath of fresh air when I hear you talking unscripted about how people matter in your home healthcare, business, and just really appreciate, your dedication to humanity. So, how did you find that charge? How did you land there? Like, how did you become, a business owner, a person who has to make a living, but in a society, it seems you reject it, doing that at the cost of people? How do you balance that?
I think it was the path of my faith, number one, and the path of the spiritual part of us that we have to learn about as we grow in our faith. For me as a Christian, to grow day by day, month by month, year by year, I started to realize that God had a plan for me.
Okay.
And there were little things that were happening along the way. I wanted and thought that I was a business person.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, someone would say, "Oh, you're a business person." And I would say, yes. But one thing I never, ever was outspoken about was that I was a business owner. And then when people would find out that, "Oh, you own Divine Home Care," I would always say, without hesitation, it would just pop out, "No, I don't own Divine Home Care. The Lord owns Divine Home Care. I am a steward."
Right.
And so along the way, I started taking notice to things that were happening in my business career and as well as my faith and in my Christianity. So
wow,
that's how
really inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you find your faith intersects with your business practices? So some more like specific examples.
I would say the most important, I am in home care, so I work with we call them beneficiaries, and for me, they're patients. They will always be my patients. And staff. Your staff in a business, if you or a business person does not understand that your staff is the most important commodity that you have. And I always felt that because I was once a staff. I worked, for years, worked with and for others. But one of the things that I always felt inside was, when I become a business owner, I will value my staff. And when I say value, in that making money is not the number one priority. Of course, making money, you have to do that because in order to stay in business, you have to make money. Even as a nonprofit, you have to bring in funds to keep that business going. So early on, it was understanding humanity and understanding that the money was not the main goal.
Right.
The main goal was being a steward over your business. And that's regardless of what kind of business it is. Being that steward and that person that says, yes, I want to make money, but not at all cost.
Yeah.
What a better society we would have if everyone truly understood that the end goal, which is to make money, is not the most important thing. And so, I really appreciate that. I think that for some ways that the Democratic Party has gotten this label of being anti-business and capitalist because we don't endorse, dehumanizing people really at the expense of profits. And so I appreciate hearing that from you. And so one thing that, I'm personally deeply committed to is community service and ensuring that everyone has a quality of life. And I think a great quality of life. And I think the thing that you nailed on the head was it's not all about money we have to eat, but it's not all about getting rich. I think people like that don't value the bank account, but you value a quality of life that God has given you. And, and so I thank you for saying that. What do you think business's role, as a small business owner, what do you think your business or other businesses' role should be in a small community like Rayford or Laurinburg or Red Springs? Talk to me a little bit about that.
I think that the main priority of a business or a business owner is to uplift the community. And when I say uplift, I mean them financially, because we work for the financial gain. So we can feed our families, have our homes, cars, those things. But the business owner should be focused in on uplifting the community, understanding that when you do well, the community does well.
Absolutely.
In that perspective, saying, if I profit, then that means I can grow, which means I can hire more people, which in turn would then have them uplift their families. Mm-hmm. That is one of the things that not only in my business of taking care of sick individuals, disabled individuals, but the fact that I can look at staff who have been with me, and I will stop in my average staff. I have some staff that have been with me 15 years.
Oh my goodness.
15 years in this small town of Rayford. And they could have gone on to other agencies.
Sure.
But they didn't, because we believe in community. We believe in uplifting. And I think business owners need to do that, to look at the community and not only just say, oh, I'm making this amount of money and I want this and I want that and I want this, but look at it and say, how can I enhance the lives of other individuals?
That is such a beautiful sentiment. I mean, it blows my mind that more business owners don't think that way, because you're thinking about the long game. You're not worried about quarterly profits next quarter. It's how does my business last for 15, 20 years, and how does it improve the community the whole time? And that is incredible.
And I have the same worries and the same things that you have to worry about: taxes, insurances, workers' comp, liability, all of it. It's not just the taxes, but it's all of the other things that come along with it. But as a good steward, you understand that it's a tier. What comes? And the Bible says you pay your taxes. You pay your taxes, you will then prosper. So you pay your taxes, you pay your employees, then you pay yourself. That premise from day one, because no one walks into a business and becomes profitable right away.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
that's how I always looked at it. Pay your taxes, pay your employees, pay yourself. And then God will honor you because
He
you're
will.
not being selfish about
That's
what you do. Mm-hmm.
that's right.
Words to live by.
There's absolutely words to live by. Words to live by. There's a young lady at Hoke High, I'm sure, who is nurturing, caring, good with people, someone like yourself. What would you say to that 11th grader who might want to follow in your footsteps to become, the next, the next public servant that you are?
I would say, number one, pray, ask God to direct you. Secondly, set your goals and stick with your goals. Research. I have seen folk go into business. They don't have a clue about the business, but they think that there's money there. I'm going to go into this business and I'm going to do this and I'm going to make all this money. Understanding that we must understand, those of us that want to become entrepreneurs, we must understand that it is a process. It is not something that just happens. It is not something that, oh, I want to do this and it happens. It's a process. It's a learning experience. Some folk go in thinking they know it all, and it's a learning experience. It's not, I know it all. In the 20 years that I've been in this business, I have seen so many come and go. Come and I know God is that, and that's why I keep the Lord in front of it all. Because no matter what we may face, He's there to move that mountain, to help us climb over that mountain. And I'll give you an example. In our business, in our environment, about 10 years ago, they came in and they revamped the whole process, all of the programs. And in that revamping, they did severe cuts. There were agencies that went out of business because they had gone in a direction that I can do this, this, and this, when you can't do this, this, and this. That revamping, there were certain things that were changed. Divine didn't have to change anything.
Oh.
Nothing. I was so proud. We were still struggling, trying to get past that break even. And we came out, and that's when I realized that, yes, you're doing it right, and to continue to do it right in that way. And
how does your perspective from business affect your involvement in the Democratic Party? What's the connection between those two?
I was born into the Democratic Party. My generation. And that's
ancestral Democrat. I love it.
Initially. I think that the Democratic Party is the party that looks to help individuals. And it's not always just the poor. Yes, the Democratic Party has looked out for the poor. But when the Affordable Care Act passed, that was a value of great value for our country and for middle class people who were paying $1,000 or more. And by now, at that time, they'd probably been paying up to $2,000 for the coverage that they have today.
That's right.
The Democratic Party saved our country from COVID, that whole environment. The Democratic Party, I believe, the time when I was going to school, we had open enrollment. You could just go to college. There was no fees. It was the Democratic Party that to me uplifts our country from the poor of the poor to the wealthy. Everyone benefits in one way. And I think that's why I've always stayed. And I have thought about, should you? Then I said, why? There are certain philosophies I just don't believe in, and I don't know that I would change. I have yet to have a president in the Democratic for any office in the Democratic, and I'm talking president because that's what we're closest to. I've never had a president, a candidate, a presidential candidate in the Democratic Party that I did not like.
No. Wow.
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 Every time I say that, I think about Hillary Clinton and probably saying, ha, ha, at this moment.
Yeah.
But my life and my family, all of my family are Democrat. And the Democratic Party to me is for the people.
Yeah. It is.
What would you like to, I'm sorry, William.
No, good. I
was going to say, we're in an election year. What would you like to see the party run on in relation to business? Where could the Democratic Party help out small businesses like yours?
I think maybe opening up centers where young entrepreneurs could come and learn business. You can get a business degree in college, but we all know I'm a registered nurse as well. What I learned in school, what I learned in school, 4 years of nursing, 4 years of business. I tell everyone I could have had a doctorate, but my path was to do what I do. But I think that as far as the government is concerned, I think that we need to teach our youngsters, our high schoolers, our college grads, the real part of business, how to pay taxes, how to understand what a federal tax, what is Medicare, what is Social Security, not wait until we are almost 50 years old and then we start researching what is really Medicare about, what is Social Security, why am I paying that? These are the things that when an individual is getting ready to go into business, they have to know about. They need to know it.
You're 100% right. I often wish that my program were less theoretical and more practical in the sense that you go into your program and maybe by the second half of your sophomore year, junior year, you're actually engrossed, not an internship, but your program is the internship, or your program is the apprenticeship, or your program is actually running a business, simulated or real, and we're supporting, like you said, the kind of business incubators that are that'll be wonderful. There are a lot of communities across North Carolina where students, instead of having to go to a centrally located campus, they could learn remotely in their home communities and be able to immediately take those skill sets and that knowledge and establish businesses. I'm working in a community in Southern Halifax County that has, tremendous challenges, but a lot of potential, and a lot of brilliant people are coming out of that community. And I think that some of them are going to Fayetteville State University. I think that the important thing is exactly what you said. Let's not wait until you're, we don't, when you get a driver's ed, you don't study, 4 months in a book and they just put you in a car and say, go at it. You know what I'm saying? They actually, give you the opportunity to get hands-on experience. And I think the internship, model is just too far removed from the actual real life opportunities of running a business. And some businesses, CEOs oftentimes have the benefit of letting raising their kids in that business and then sending them to Harvard, Yale, or, wherever, Wharton, and then, giving them the degree. But so I totally agree with that. So, we're going to get into, local politics now. We're not going to, all of us are officers in the Hope County Democrat Party. So I'll go ahead and put this disclaimer out. By us talking about this, we in no way are endorsing a Democratic candidate in this primary season, but boy, isn't it an exciting season to see those signs sprouting up and, early vote has started. How are you all feeling now that, that things are rolling and we're moving along? we're going to go into sort of like conversational mode now. How y'all feeling about it?
Excited. I think that the number of candidates and that shows that there are people that are really interested
Sure.
in their government. That's
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
I had a good opportunity last weekend. I will be the friend talking about their last vacation for the next 8 years. But the Young Democrats of North Carolina convention last weekend, we had a good number of the candidates in the primary come up and talk to us. And, I won't name names, but when I heard from both attorney general candidates, I thought, oh no, who am I going to vote for? I was only familiar with the one with a little bit bigger social media presence, but I heard from the other candidate and thought, oh my goodness, I might need to reconsider or at least do some more research. And it's a good problem to have. It's a nice time to look across the aisle and think, look at the dumpster fire and then look back at, choosing between two great candidates rather than, oh gosh, I guess this is what we're doing.
That's 100%. 100%. I remember in 2008 when Hillary and Obama were going at each other, and I was, in one camp, like all the way gung ho in one camp. And I remember talking to this wise Politico, and I was like, the other person should just drop out so we can just save us all the headache. And they looked at me and they're like, why would they do that? We're exciting and registering Democrats all across the country. And I was like, crap, that's right. Like primaries aren't, time to tear down your opponent, because your opponent could be the general election candidate. It's an opportunity to lift up the values of the Democratic Party and sell what we have, and push that to the people. And so I think it's a wonderful opportunity. And so that's why I too am excited about primary season and, in my capacity as chair, I am very careful not to show favoritism to anyone, but I'm excited of the crop that we have. I think what's going to be fascinating is the lieutenant governor's race. We have a hometown candidate and Senator Ben Clark, and then Rachel Hunt, who is the daughter of former Governor Jim Hunt. And so I just look forward to continuing to see how that turns out. But I mean, I'm a political science major. I love to watch the machinations of election cycles. So super exciting.
Yeah. No, I think this is an exciting one. I think with so many in, we'll have more registered voters. More people will register, and may the best woman or man win.
That's right.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. You draw these voters out to get registered, and instead of 2 people there, where maybe we have 10 additional voters, you have 10, and maybe you get 100 additional voters, 1,000
That's right.
voters, and then when we have our general election, hey, we'll come out in droves.
That's right. That's what it's about. So it's going to be turnout. The other side's going to turn out, but it's really important for us to turn our people out. Had an interesting, early, I posted on social media today, and the Elephant Party has had quite the tough week. And so we had a special election in New York. They were filling the seat of George Santos, the serial liar, so
the amusement park owner and billionaire George Santos,
the carnival barker, astronaut. He actually owned, I heard y'all, he actually owned the first colony on Mars. But I digress. At any rate, the Democrat candidate, in a sense, they were calling for a close race. The Democrat candidate ran away with it. And some of the journalists there were saying that essentially the Republicans' inability to govern, and the example of, crying about the border, producing a border bill, and then they walking away from it. A lot of that sort of shifted the voters and changed some of those on the fence to go ahead and go and support the Democrats. So I just wonder, Do you all think that, I mean, I think it's a fantastic victory for Democrats and a great, it's a, bellwether in a sense. I think it bodes well for us. Do you all think the border will still, let me ask you this question. This might be a little controversial. Is the border really that much of an issue? Or is it something that the Republicans have used? Because let's be quite frank, a lot of the Republicans are fearful of a changing America. And so it feels like to me as a person of color that the border is a dog whistle for, the acceleration of a changing and diverse America. And so they use this language as if it is the most terrifying problem that we have. And no one's saying that I'll never say that we shouldn't address it, but it does seem, from my perspective to be a bit inflated as a number one policy issue. As a matter of fact, it was a number one policy issue in the New York race. And I find that to be fascinating for states so far from the actual border that was their number one, policy, determining issue. How do you all feel about that? Let me just stop talking.
I believe it's starting to backfire.
Mm.
I believe, we're all immigrants.
Sure.
I think that people are starting to get tired of hearing, let's call it what it is. It's prejudice.
Right.
It's
right. Mm-hmm.
It's all of those things when I believe that there should be kind of border control.
Sure.
Definitely. But
absolutely.
Name calling and calling folks aliens and those types of things, that type of language is starting to backfire, and it will. And I think that our party stays away from that. And I am so happy that we, as Michelle Obama says, we go high, they go low, we go high, 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 because we just have to understand that we're all human.
That's right.
And that we're all the same. I think, not being cliche, we all bleed the same color.
That's right.
We all have two eyes, one nose. Our brains are the same in terms of intellect across the board. There is no superior any race or anything. Right. Why can't we just get a bill together?
Right.
Something that is fair and equitable to immigrants as well as for our citizens in this country. But
I think that's what
the rhetoric about the border. And it's all the border of Mexico, but as far as I see this, the border runs all the way through Texas and Florida, and it's all, we need to figure out, our politicians need to figure out a way to help folk that want to come to this country and doing the right thing, rather than using it as a political pawn, because that's exactly what they're doing. It's playing to people's emotions and take over your jobs. Most Americans don't want the jobs that they do. Travel. If you travel, you'll see. You'll know exactly what it's all about. But we are a country of all races. And I think that this border is just starting to become annoying. Do the right thing. Get the right laws in place. I mean, these are supposed to be intelligent folk. These politicians are, how does it take, what are we going, 10 years now? On the same subject, the same rhetoric, the same yes, then no, then maybe so. I don't know. I'm to the point where I just want to cut it off. Just turn it off. I turn it off when they start talking about immigration. You're going to do what you want to do. That's a political ball that they're playing with. They throw it when they throw that ball. Can I get a strike? Or will I get a hit? I don't know.
Tyson, you were about to say something?
Oh, I was going to say, I think that's what the tragedy of the failure of the recent border bill is. You know, there were some attacks on the bill from the left because there are pieces of it that are very sort of to the right and a little harsher than I think we would naturally lean towards. But you know, when I see the videos, when I lived in El Paso, Texas for 5 years, a border, you know, one of the main border towns, when a woman is carrying her children across the Rio Grande, that is an unbelievable human tragedy.
Mm.
It is
Mm-hmm.
horrible that that's the way the system functioned. And so funneling people to ports of entry, processing them, getting them work visas, doing the things you would do with a refugee, someone looking for asylum or anything like that. Like, I think that makes sense. Like a system that has people wandering through the desert, you know, having cartels help them. I mean, all of those things, it's every part of that is an unspeakable tragedy. And it's sad because I think the bill would have helped. It would have helped the processing time. It would have helped add some humanity to it. But, you know, of course, Donald Trump said they can't do it. So every Republican remembered they don't have a spine and stopped voting for it. To your point, William, on the border and being a dog whistle, I think at the top level it is, right? Like you talk about the border and it's sort of that wink nod. Oh yeah, we're talking about that. But I think it also, and the reason why it has been able to penetrate into Democratic circles is I think it sort of masks a deeper anxiety about economic reality in the United States today. You know, if you're a millennial or a Gen Z, the likelihood that you'll be able to purchase a house is much lower than it was for your parents and much, much lower than it was for your grandparents.
Wow.
And it's harder to look at globalism and the way that, you know, the Reagan Revolution shifted money to the higher, you know what I mean? That is so complicated and so hard for people to understand. Whereas you can say, oh, well, there's immigrants drive down wages because it increases the pool of workers, which through macroeconomics can reduce or result in lower wages. And so ipso facto, this immigrant made me lose my job and now my life is worse. I cannot afford a home because of this person.
Mm-hmm.
Missing that's not the reality of it. I mean, exactly like you said, Florian, like they're not taking your jobs. Like most of these immigrants are here on work permits legally. Or have work permits from Mexico and the United States. They're working in agricultural, work, which is backbreaking, which is very difficult. And they're doing it to give themselves a better life. They're not, it's so, again, living in El Paso for 5 years. El Paso is the third safest city in the country, year after year after year. There's very little crime. It's beautiful. The community is really tight. And yeah, there's immigration, and it doesn't, like, the quality of life for everyone is pretty dang high in El Paso. It's not this sort of Republican nightmare that they would go to. The last thing I wanted to say, I think it also just absolutely reveals the failure of our foreign policy in Latin America.
Speak to it, man.
So I have two pieces on it. First, I think history will view these people coming to the border as the first climate refugees. Earth is becoming hotter. It's affecting where they live. And if you can't live in your family house anymore because the climate has altered and changed weather patterns or what have you, where are you going to go? Are we going to look at these people and say, hey, you and your family just have to die here because, sorry, you can't come to us? No, you're going to figure something out. And then two, Venezuela is the current example, right? The maximum pressure campaign under the Trump administration, oil prices crater in 2020 and 2021. There's no food on the shelves. The trade imbalance becomes unsustainable, inflation in the triple digits. And again, would you sit there while your kid's starved because some people in DC are going to be mad about it? No. You would pick them up and you would make sure they get fed. And if it means walking the entirety of Latin America to the border for a better life, I would say I have a tremendous amount of respect for those people. And to dehumanize them and to treat them like that is just, again, every time it's a human tragedy.
I think thank you so much for that, Tyson. I think one of the major things that we want to hammer home over this podcast is that Democrats value humanity. We value human life. And while the Republican strategy is to cater and manipulate fear, we are always going to stand and do the right thing, whether it costs us an election cycle or two, but we are going to always default to taking care of human beings. And so we hope that the American people will reward us. We have chaos and fear on one side of the ballot this year, and we have experience, we have compassion, and we have humanity, and a governing class on the Democratic side that recognizes we are moving forward in this future, not drill baby drill just to own the liberals, not send them back just to own the liberals. Those aren't policy solutions. And I think again that's why we're here, why this part of this is part of the national discourse in the first place. The Republicans don't really have anything to offer the country in terms of a vision. Like, what kind of vision do you get from them? I don't see anything worth, they're not promising a new green economy. They're not talking about, making folks' lives better, learning new trades. It's all about hurting people. And that's really, I think, a theme that we're going to hit on a lot, over this election cycle. So I appreciate you all speaking to that. Another thing that happened today was that, the Donald Trump got hit with a $355 million fine, given, I think it was his, mishandling of his business in New York. Lots to think about there. I read a couple of pieces, analysis pieces about how dangerous, a person would be if they had access to sensitive material, and how they may be willing, in an effort to raise this money. I think we all have questions about really how rich Donald Trump was, considering part of the order and part of the judge's, ruling was that he misrepresented how rich he was in the first place to get loans that he should have gotten. We should be concerned about, his putting him in a position to sell secrets to, other nations. So, yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. Just seems so strange. We haven't even approached the topic that, he stood up in a rally and told his supporters that he would encourage Russia to invade NATO members if they didn't do what they were supposed to do. So that's a whole other conversation. The $355 million, do you think that this starts to another loss in the courtroom? Do you all think that this starts to peel off the veneer? Does it change the complexion of the race? It's a lot of money. And, for a person who prides themselves on winning, I mean, do y'all think it has any kind of impact on his base or, disillusioned voters who may not be thrilled with Biden and were considering Donald Trump?
Well, I say, number one, a no vote for Biden is a vote for Donald Trump.
100%.
As a small business owner, when I hear him say, "Oh, I paid so much taxes," I sit back and I wonder, is he talking about Medicare and Social Security? Because your profits were hundreds times more than mine. Okay, thousands more than mine. Okay, tens of thousands. Let's some zeros there.
Sure.
And I pay taxes.
Yeah.
Other than Medicare and Social Security match.
Right.
So when he screams about the taxes that he's paid, is he talking about his matching Medicare and Social Security? Because if you make so much money, what did they say that he paid in taxes last year? A few hundred, I think it was.
Like $700 or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tell me, we work on the same principle of business. Am I correct? Whether you're a small business or a large business, you probably paid way more than that. Not way, but enough that I had to say, oh, I got to write this check.
Right.
Believe that this man is screaming about the taxes. That what did you pay? The only taxes that he's paid is his employee tax.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what I believe. Now I don't know. I have not seen his taxes. Tried to keep him as secret as long as he could, fighting them in court. But if he paid $700 on his revenues, he didn't pay any taxes. From my perspective as a business owner that pays taxes.
Right. I
always say that to myself when I say that. I'm like, he's screaming about all the taxes that he paid. What taxes is he talking about? Okay, I know what taxes. If you paid how much did he pay taxes?
$700.
$700 or something. I mean, just absurd.
And what's so sad is this evening he had a press conference. Did you guys see it?
No, Lord.
And
No.
Miss James is a this and everybody is corrupt and the judge is corrupt. And I'm like, where's his psychiatrist? Where's his mate?
His psychiatrist is having a few drinks. I mean, oh my goodness. Could you imagine talking to that guy about his problems?
You could, everybody else that's law-abiding citizens as corrupt, and you're the one that's corrupt. He cannot see himself as corrupt. And that's so sad.
I think that's
that he's getting from the citizens that are giving him monies for his campaign. He's probably going to pay some of his taxes with them. I hope that those folks that are out there still sending his money wake up. What do you need to see to understand that this man is not for our country?
We're going to get a psychologist. One of our guests is going to be a, mental health professional. I do think there is, and we're going to ask them some of these questions. I think you hit nailed the head. Why are people so beholden? And I'd love to get that from a mental health perspective.
Yes.
I'd love to get that opinion.
I don't know.
I worry about it a little bit. I think it makes him, and it's going to make him desperate. To paraphrase Hunter S. Thompson talking about Richard Nixon, he fights like a badger, and a badger is most dangerous when it's on its back and it smells dead in the air. And, Donald Trump's a lot of things, but he does have that animal cruel intelligence, He can smell it. And, unfortunately, even though I was too optimistic last week, so I have to be a little pessimistic this week, or 2 weeks ago rather. It's going to be a close race. Not a popular vote, obviously. Biden's going to win the popular vote by millions. But, it's going to come down to some tight races in North Carolina and Michigan and Georgia and Arizona. And, get on lucky. There's just, whatever happens in an October surprise of some sort. And he could win. And I think it's just more proof that a second Trump administration would be the last real election we ever had.
That's right. That's right.
The things he would do in his second term, because he's going to have a better, he's going to have a better structure of government around him this time. Better in the sense of being more capable. The Heritage Foundation talking about their 2025 project of filling the civil service with just the worst people that could be in civil service. And this is just another data point, another thing where, we've alluded to Navalny a couple of times tonight. Things aren't like that. People are not getting assassinated until all of a sudden they are. And it doesn't take a lot to get there. I mean, especially with some of the history of state mandated violence in this country.
That's right.
I tell you, there's a movie called The Miseducation of Something, and I think it goes back to education and educating our young people. That's my biggest concern as well for our party in general, is educating our young people to the history of this country, not just the Civil War, but the history of voting rights, the history of women not being able to vote, the history of Black people not being able to vote, the history. And when and this may be a turn to something else, but I interrelated in my head those folks that are trying to get rid of all of the books that have history that our children, whether they're Black or white, are going to miss out on. And when they miss out on that, they also miss out on the importance of voting.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much entangled into the history of our country when it comes to the Civil War, slavery, indentured servants. It's so many variables that our children will not know about because they're slowly taking things out. That segment of people who I believe want to turn our country into a country where we have a mono. I really believe there are here that want that to happen. And we, as Democrats, have to really, really push and try and stop these folk from taking our history away from our children. History, change. And when you take, my belief is that when you take the history away, you change the history.
Absolutely. Yep. It becomes, whoever is. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a close election. I do think, I'm going to take the optimistic tack this time. And I do think that there are going to be many weeks of unforced errors, and we're going to, it'll be very interesting. It'll be interesting, much too close to, for us to be comfortable at any point. But, this is where we are.
Well, so I have a question for you too. Oh, go ahead.
Biden's going to win by a landslide. I really.
There we go. There we go.
My faith coming out, okay? That my spirit keeps saying he's going to win. And people are going to wake up when they see looking at Trump. And I believe there are good Republicans.
Yes.
There are people who are Republican that they may not have the same politics as we have, but they do have morals. And we can't take that away from a person because they're Republican.
No.
But I think that there are a lot of Republicans that are tired of him. That's why.
That's 100%.
I respect Christie. Was Christie?
Yeah. Yes.
Speaks up.
That's right. 100%.
If there are some folk, they try to push them down on, maybe they'll stay quiet. They're the ones that's going to go in the booth and change their vote. Hopefully. Hopefully. That's what we have to pray about that.
That's right.
Scripture that says Philippians 4:13 says that all things are possible.
Right? For those who love the Lord.
All things are possible.
All things are possible.
Yeah. Faith and belief gets us to where we need to be. And,
that's right.
And I know even as a businesswoman, if I didn't have the faith and the belief that God was going to be there for us, and when I say us, I mean anyone and everyone that was ever involved in Divine Home Care. And I don't know if I was supposed to say that, but it just came out.
No, please go.
But I just believe that in my faith says Joe Biden has this. And they could say he's old. They could say he's dead. But he have people. It's not only Joe Biden.
No.
People that are around him as well. Just like they tried to trap him with him and his son. I believe the other day I read that was out.
That's right.
They were honored and Trump was dishonored. So
that's it.
People are going to wake up. And if they don't, then we have to say, shame on you.
Shame on them. That's right.
Shame on
No, you're right. You're right. That was yet another thing that happened this week, that the FBI informant who lied, was so was charged. So yeah. Tyson, you were about to say something?
Well, so I feel like, wow, if we just clipped the episode ending with you talking about Joe Biden winning, your faith, having you think Joe Biden's winning, I think that'd be a perfect ending. So I don't even know if I should ask my question. But so, yeah, I'm a little bit on the foreign policy side. William, you brought up Trump saying he's going to, threaten NATO countries if they don't pay their dues, which is not a thing in NATO. So NATO countries are supposed to spend 2% of GDP on militaries, defense spending. You don't have to, though. There's nothing in the NATO charter that says you have to. It's a goal. It's a nice goal. Most countries hover between 1.5% and 2.5%. We spend 3%. Poland spends 3%. I think the UK spends like 2.5%. Anyway, that's by the by. But, in my 2 deployments to Iraq and then to Poland, I have worked with every NATO member country, either in their capacity as a bilateral partner in Iraq or with NATO itself in Europe. I am NATO's biggest fan. If you don't follow them on social media, NATO's social media stuff is some of the coolest, will hype you up for NATO. Highly recommend. But so it's important. It's important for a million reasons. The Biden campaign rolled out an ad this week about, NATO is how we won the Cold War. Every president stood up with NATO. Article 5, which is the collective defense, an attack on one is an attack on all, has only been activated one time. And it was 9/11 when the United States was attacked. And every single NATO country answered that call. Every single NATO country sent troops to Afghanistan. Every single country sent first responders, firefighters, help to the United States after 9/11.
Yes.
That's incredible.
For us to even be discussing leaving is just, it's disgusting. Like, that's something like I'm like getting mad thinking about it. But I'm a nerd and I have a personal connection with NATO. How do you think we communicate the importance of NATO to someone in Hope County?
Tyson, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that there are a lot of folk in Hope County who are just like you. Serve. And who serve and who can take that message and educate all of us. I didn't know that. I didn't know that about 9/11. I didn't know.
And
I didn't know that, they answered the call. They went to Afghanistan. That this treaty has in effect defended democracy, in the free world. I didn't know that. And I think sharing it as you have will open up a lot of eyes and also illuminate just how dangerous and compromised, Donald Trump is. Yeah, man. Tyson, shout out to you for that perspective and, just sort of centering us. I think you're right. We have to, look at this election through clear eyes, but I think as we have a lot of opportunities, coming our way and unforced errors. We just sort of wrapping things up. I was just thanking Tyson for that perspective. Did you have sort of a response to his question?
No, it was very informative for me. I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I'm just learning. We're just learning here. And I think that speaking out in this podcast is going to go out. I'm going to post this episode, the link to this episode to all of our friends on Hope County. I hope you do too, Mrs. Fleming, and you as well, Tyson. Absolutely. And so we want to do that so that people can hear exactly what you just said. I think that's really helpful. But we want to thank you, Mrs. Fleming, for your faith and your hard work in this community for all these years, employing people, putting food on their table, helping putting food on their tables, helping give them, obviously your work in home health care gives people a longer and better quality of life in their homes, and the people that you employ, obviously, can depend on you as a leader to find employment, so we thank you for your service. We thank you for your service as First Vice. Tomorrow we're going to have a great time at the Hope County Library, working with our precincts, getting them ready for this long call, because Hope County is going to look great this year for the Democratic Party. We're going to turn it out for sure. I'll leave it to you two, for any final words before we wrap it up.
I wanted to thank you. That was amazing. And thank you so much for your time. Also just wanted a quick shout out. We are a couple of events coming up. So the county party meeting will be Tuesday via Zoom, 7 p.m. normal time. Hear about our exciting finances and other business from William. And then on the 23rd of March, we are currently in the beginnings of planning a free throw tournament at the high school. Some great prizes will be involved in that. It'll be a great time for everyone. For more information on that, you can go to mess up the website. William, help me out. Call it a lifeline.
HokeDems.com/store. You can go to our store, take a look at that. And again, that's HokeDems, HokeDems.com/store. And you can check out the free throw tournament, as well as some nice cool shirts that we're going to demo on our next episode.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I want to thank you for inviting me. Just thank you so much. I'm very appreciative of this show.
This is a beautiful community. You make it beautiful, and we thank you for taking your time. And we're going to showcase it. We're going to bring all this beauty to the community and make folk proud that, Hope County hears, we're doing our thing. So until the next time, thank you all for joining the Hope Dems podcast, and we'll see you on the next side. Take care.
Thank you, Chair.
See y'all.
Good night.
Absolutely. Good night.